watching Canadian Muslim news on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today is International Human Rights Day. We'll have an interview with Taha Ghayyur, Executive Director of Justice for All Canada, about their work for persecuted Muslims worldwide. But first, some news headlines. Canadians stand with Quebec teacher removed from post for wearing a headscarf. Muslim mum calls for cameras in classrooms after her son was allegedly slapped by teacher. Muslim youth establishes new environmental committee in Calgary. US House of Representatives pass Uyghur forced labour bill. And several UK mosques recognised in British Beacon Mosque Awards. And now the details. Support pours in after grade 3 teacher Fatima Anvari was reassigned in a Quebec school for violating Bill 21 by wearing a headscarf. People hung green ribbons and encouraging notes on the school fence in support of Anvari. They also organised a letter-writing campaign that condemned the situation, with plans to send it to provincial and federal officials, including Premier Francois Legault. Bill 21 is a law passed in 2019 that bans people from wearing religious garb or symbols while working for the government. In an interview with CTV, Anvari said that she hopes this incident will spark a larger discussion over Bill 21. Abir Dandal is calling for surveillance cameras to be installed in classes after her 12-year-old was allegedly slapped by an educational assistant at an Oakville elementary school in Ontario. Dandal's son is in a special needs class as he has cerebral palsy and autism that is non-verbal. He was allegedly smacked in the face after he grabbed the educator's hand too roughly, says Dandal to CBC News. Marie Denton, a spokesperson for the Halton School Board, says that they are investigating the incident and could not comment further. Denton said that due to privacy issues for other students, cameras are not an option at present. An environmental committee at Akram Juma Mosque in Calgary organised a community cleanup as part of their ongoing efforts to make their centre eco-friendly. The committee has coordinated several initiatives since their establishment in March, such as giving out 300 reusable bottles for the centre that can host up to 2,000 people. They also educate mosque attendees on the connection between Islam and maintaining a clean environment. Qureshi said that the mosque committee was launched as people showed interest in greening their mosque. The community has been very receptive towards the activities and changes, Qureshi told ICRA. The US House passed legislation in a 428-1 vote that was designed to punish China for its treatment of Uyghur Muslims, a move that is expected to anger Beijing and add to rising tensions. The law will restrict goods from the Xinjiang region, which Uyghurs call Eastern Turkestan. The vote shows a growing sentiment in the US Congress for confronting China. Muslim American human rights organization Justice for All applauded the passage of the historic bill. The 4th annual British Beacon Mosque Awards gave several Islamic institutions in the United Kingdom prestigious awards. Categories for awards include Outreach Services, Women's Services, Impactful Imam, and the Best Future Design Award, among others. Thousands of people across the UK watched the awards ceremony. Among the winners was Lantern Academy for the Best Youth Service Award. This is the Academy's second consecutive win, known for being one of the best Islamic schools in the area that caters to over 350 students. Beacon Mosque is a Muslim organization seeking to create quality benchmarks for mosques around the world. That's it for the news. And now an interview with Taha Ghayyur, Executive Director of Justice for All Canada, about their advocacy work for persecuted Muslims worldwide, especially important on this day, International Human Rights Day. Welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Taha.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for having me.
You've been on our show many times. You're, mashallah, a person with many hats. Today you're here because you're the Executive Director of Justice for All Canada. Tell us about Justice for All Canada.
Justice for All Canada is a human rights advocacy organization that is focused on fighting genocides and all sorts of persecution of minorities, and especially Muslim minorities around the world that do not typically get highlighted. And our job is to essentially amplify the voices of the oppressed individuals and minorities around the world, as well as human rights defenders, and to ensure that justice is served through means of advocacy and lobbying in Canada, United States, and around the world.
Now, this is Canadian Muslim News, part of Muslim Network TV, which is coming from the Sound Vision Foundation in the US. And we've started what we hope to be a regular piece with Justice for All US. And we're hoping to start with your organization, a regular monthly piece on Justice for All Canada. But just for the people who might be confused, are you able to explain the relationship between Justice for All Canada and Justice for All US?
Well, thank you for asking that question. We are essentially sister organizations. Justice for All, of course, is our head office, or Justice for All USA is our head office based in Chicago. We are based in Canada. We are legally and financially, of course, distinct entities in both in the US and Canada. What we do share, of course, are our strategies and our campaigns, especially when it comes to specific human rights campaigns where there are going to be overlaps, and we don't want to we want to make sure that there is no redundancy in the kind of work we are doing. But when it comes to our legal status, financial status, and as well as our advocacy actions and lobby actions, they are independent and completely focused in Canada.
So what are the main campaigns that Justice for All Canada is working on right now?
Justice for All Canada started off back in 2012 officially with Burma Task Force. And alhamdulillah, through that success of that campaign at a time when nobody cared about, nobody heard about Rohingya, we were talking about it, and we brought together, of course, wonderful Rohingya leaders and organizations and amplified their voices, and of course advocated to the Canadian government very, in a very focused way to become the first country in the world to call it a genocide, and have a special envoy under Honorable Bob Rae to go down and investigate, as well as to get Canada to revoke Aung San Suu Kyi's honorary citizenship for the first time in Canadian history, and of course dedicate $330 million plus in aid to Myanmar, to Rohingya Muslims in Bangladesh or Cox's Bazar. That being said, since then it has launched several groundbreaking campaigns, including Save Uyghur campaign to hopefully liberate over almost 3 million or so Uyghur Muslims in the world's largest concentration camps.
And that was the reason you were on our show last time. Actually, we were talking about Hussein Jalil and Justice for All's campaign about that. I want to ask you about human rights as a concept or a genre or something. Our interview with it was Adam Carroll from Justice for All US. He made a comment that he thought that human rights wasn't necessarily focused on by the Muslim community. Although I know that a lot of Muslims, they go and attend rallies to protest Western foreign policy, for example. But is it the case that there's a protest against foreign policy but not a focus on human rights advocacy?
You mean in the Muslim community?
Yeah, in the Muslim community.
Yes, I think Muslims in general, and of course Muslims in Canada, which is our context, they understand the idea of foreign policy and changing foreign policy, because that's how because so much of persecution is happening around the world. And I think Muslims also understand very well how central the concept of justice or qist or adl is from Islamic perspective. But what remains to be understood more and focused more on by the Muslim community is really the idea of justice from the human rights lens. And the idea that justice, even from Islamic perspective, is not just focused on, and it's not just limited to it's not just limited to Muslim community, and it is actually goes beyond. And I think this is where we need a lot more focus and work.
But Justice for All Canada focuses on Muslim minorities who are persecuted around the world.
Justice for All works on Muslim minorities, not only just Muslim minorities. Of course, that is our key area of focus, but by extension, we do actually advocate for rights of other minorities, Muslim or otherwise. Meaning, for instance, in the case of Rohingya, we were actually advocating for Kachin and Karen, Christian minorities who were also being persecuted. In the case of India right now, we're talking about Sikh farmers, we are talking about Christians and Dalits and any other community and minority in India that is being persecuted right now under the BJP and Hindutva regime. In the case of Palestine, same thing. We're not just talking about Palestinian Muslims, even though they are the ones who are the most heavily impacted, but we're talking about, of course, Christians as well. So while our focus is Muslim minorities, but we're also fighting actually injustice at home as well. We are trying in Canada in particular, especially.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, about Canada. I know that Justice for All Canada has taken a really pioneering lead role in Muslim Indigenous relations, and there was a really interesting seminar that you held and a youth program. How about telling us about that?
Yeah, so Justice for All Canada has partnered with two other wonderful organizations in the community to launch this whole idea of Indigenous Muslim relations and involving young Muslims, starting at a younger age, of course, towards the path of reconciliation. And that starts with learning, education, engagement with our indigenous elders, with indigenous peoples, leadership, and understanding what they want us to do when it comes to reconciliation and how they want us to engage with them. And this is what this program is about. It's a 2-month program that takes young people through of a series of sessions, including a site visit to an indigenous community reserve, as well as some cultural areas that, and specifically a former site of a residential school, unfortunately. So all of that is an eye opener for young people as well as adults who, of course, end up joining.
Do you have any memorable? Do you have any memorable moments from the site visit? I believe it took place very recently, a couple of weeks ago.
Very recently, we visited the Woodland Cultural Center, which was a site of former school. And I think the most difficult one was when one of the residential school survivors who volunteers his time to be there every weekend was sharing with us his personal life stories. And one of the most difficult one was the fact that when he described his mother, left him at the residential school. Of course, she had hardly any choice to do so, but she never came back and be able to see him for 11 years. And I've heard some very, very painful stories of them not being able to ever hug their parents for all these years, in fact, decades, even after they're released. There's just no connection, and just that bonding of love that we all take for granted with our parents or with our children is just completely missing. And
that's really heartbreaking. That is very heartbreaking. May Allah help mend their hearts. Now we're almost out of time. You are an organization then that are working in this field of heartbreaking moments. How do you get support from the Muslim community or non-Muslim community? Do you do fundraisers? Do you do letters? Do you rely on grants? Like, who supports your work financially?
Believe it or not, it's all fundraising. We don't get any government support. We don't do even grant writing. We just focus on our work, and with the grace of God, we have a lot of good-hearted community members who do support. So we do have fundraising campaigns, end-of-year fundraising campaign as we have right now in Ramadan as well. And if anybody wants to, of course, support, they can always go to justiceforallcanada.org and make a donation and commitment to donate on a regular basis. We also actually have a fundraising event coming up a first ever fundraising benefit or benefit for Justice for All called Night of Justice, Love Ummah Night for Rights, on December 27th in Toronto and Mississauga. If you are in the Greater Toronto area, please do come and join us. You can check it out more specifically. Where we're going to be actually awarding some wonderful justice defenders and human rights defenders from the Canadian Muslim community and our allies as well that night. So please do join us that evening.
Well, thank you for joining us. We hope this becomes a regular event so that we can spotlight the really important and under-noticed work that you're doing at Justice for All. So again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the conversation.
You've been watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay safe and God bless.